Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening, and welcome to Oblong Online. I'm Helen Soslowski, the Events Director for Oblong Books. Before I begin our introductions and welcome our guests this evening, if you have questions for the authors, please type them at any time in the chat module that you'll find on the right-hand side of the screen. There's an alternate place you can ask questions, and that's at the bottom. You'll see a little button that says Ask a Question. So we'll address all questions at the end of the program. So for anyone who's had to deal with unraveling an estate after losing a parent or a relative or a friend, I can attest it's completely daunting. How helpful it would be to have a guide as to what we should all be doing now to ensure we don't leave a total mess behind us when we leave. I'm delighted to welcome our guests this evening, authors Abby Schneiderman, Adam Seifer, and Jean Newman, who had the absolutely genius idea, right up there with Post-its, I think, to write a book outlining all of the things that we really should, all of us, be getting in order in our lives in case we get hit by a bus or any other unforeseen catastrophe. So to introduce our authors this evening, Abby Schneiderman is co-founder and co-CEO of Everplans. She's an industry expert in the areas of digital estate planning, technology, and consumerism. Abby is a Forbes.com contributor and has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and CNBC. Welcome, Abby. Adam Seifer is co-founder and co-CEO of Everplans and has helped create multiple online communities and networks. He was also an inventor on the social networking patent, now owned by LinkedIn. Jean Newman serves as Everplans editorial and education director and has spent his career as a writer, editor, and content leader for Maxim.com, Hachette Philippachi Digital, and other lifestyle properties. And welcome to you all. We can't wait to hear about what we should all be doing in case we get hit by a bus.
Well, thank you so much, Helen, and to Oblong Books for having us. Adam, Jean, and I are thrilled to be here. And I thought that maybe what I would do is give you the story as to how this whole book came to be, how our company came to be. It actually all started about 10 years ago when I was planning my wedding. And I was using all of these online resources that were out there, like the knot.com and Martha Stewart's websites. And I was on them every single day. I was on their apps and their guides and their calendars and their checklists. And I don't know why my brain went from marriage to death, but I started to think about what's next in life and what are the other life stages that are out there and what are the other resources that are out there that are going to guide me through the rest of my life. And I'm a tech entrepreneur, and out of intellectual curiosity, I just started looking into it and found that sure enough, there were plenty of resources for having weddings, plenty of resources for having kids, plenty of resources for buying your first home or financial planning or even retirement planning. But after retirement planning, that was it. There were no more life stages covered online. And I mentioned this idea to Adam, who is another veteran of the New York City tech community. And I said, Adam, who's helping people deal with death? And he said, well, somebody is. That's the biggest life stage that there is. Not everybody gets married. Not everybody has kids. That's the biggest life stage. And I said, I know, but there's I can't find anything out there. And so we started looking into it. We did the whole startup. We were meeting in coffee shops in New York and in each other's apartments. And for about a year, looking into what was out there. And after a year, we were shocked. And I have to say, appalled at the fact that there actually was nothing. There were no great resources helping people to navigate what is quite possibly the most complicated, stressful, crazy life stage that there is. And so that was the original idea for what we've been building, which is to create the first modern consumer company in what we now call life and legacy planning. And we started by creating content. And we wrote articles on everything from how do you write a will to what do you wear to a funeral to how do you name a power of attorney and everything in between. And this is actually a picture of our company, Everplans. This is in our office in New York City a few years ago, obviously pre-COVID. And we started putting these articles online, and it grew quickly, our website, proving that there clearly was a need for this type of information. And then I'll tell you a big part of our personal story is that a year after we launched this content company, my family experienced a terrible, terrible tragedy, which is that my 51-year-old brother was on his way to lunch with his family on vacation when he was killed in a head-on collision by an impaired driver driving down the wrong side of the road in broad daylight. And it was an absolute disaster for us. And our family was just put into this terrible situation of having to figure out, so many different things. My brother had made some financial arrangements, but we really had no idea what he would have wanted. And suddenly we were in this position of having to make all sorts of decisions. They were stressful, complicated, expensive, and had to be made in a really short amount of time. And this is actually a picture of us together. This is my favorite picture of us together. I think I was about 2. And what this situation really made Adam and I realize was that in order to really make a difference for people at their time of greatest need, we had to help people get a plan in place ahead of time. That way, if tragedy or emergency struck, families would have easy access to everything that they needed. And so we began building our planning platform and Everplans. And that's when Jean came aboard. Jean is our secret weapon who joined us to help make this whole topic more relatable and accessible to everybody. And this book really is a culmination of everything that we've learned and will empower and inspire everyone to get a plan in place. But when we started writing In Case You Get Hit by a Bus well over a year ago, we obviously did not know that the world would change the way that it has, which we address in the book's introduction. And Adam, if you don't mind taking it over from here for a bit.
Thanks, Abby. Hi, everyone. And this is a picture of my family, and that's who I plan for. And this is from back in March, back when wearing a mask was just a novelty. So getting into the book, for more than 10 years, we have been obsessed with helping people to get their lives organized in case something unexpected happens. By far, the most difficult part of our mission used to be convincing people that the unexpected actually happens, and that unexpected things could happen at any time, like getting hit by a bus, as our not-so-subtle title suggests. And then, at the beginning of 2020, the entire world was hit by a bus in the form of a pandemic. The unexpected, the very thing our company was built around, became reality for just about everyone on the planet. Life as we knew it ground to a halt. Those families that could hunkered down to minimize the impact, and most everyone feared the worst. But there were undeniable bright spots too. A warm text from a friend you lost touch with years ago, a post on social media from someone on the road to recovery, a former coworker checking in to see if you were okay. Group video calls with family members became the norm, a chance at least to see each other's smiling faces and to poke fun at parents who spent half the call trying to figure out how to turn on their cameras or microphones. Birthdays, holidays, and graduations were celebrated remotely, but we could still be together. These were the moments that made us forget how tough everything had become and focus on what's really important, the hope and strength we get from those we love, who themselves take strength from us in return.
The feelings of hope and despair that arise during a crisis can often motivate us to make lasting positive life changes. But as memories fade and normal routines return, that feeling of hope and purpose can diminish. This book is intended to help you renew, reinforce, and remind yourself of that hope for the rest of your life. And we believe that planning for your family and loved ones is the key. Our mission has always been to help as many people as possible prepare for the unexpected. That mission, to help people ensure that their family isn't left unprepared when the unexpected strikes, has taken on an even greater, more solemn importance now. But really, it was always that way for us. Over time, as more and more people started using Everplans, we realized the site wasn't about death. It was about life, because getting everything organized lets you live to the fullest, knowing you're prepared for anything having done your very best for those that you love. And that's what you'll find in this book, a plan to do just that. And it's easier than you think. And speaking of loved ones, these are my kids. Here's a good question to consider as you get started. What's important to you? Most people simply say family, but we want you to go deeper than that. What's really important to you? It doesn't have to be one thing. Our lives aren't that simple. It might be something that hurts a little or even makes you uncomfortable to think about, because being challenged can spring us into action. We all have different motivations. Maybe you witnessed the chaos a friend experienced after the death of a family member and don't want your own family to suffer the same fate. A parent might be terrified at the prospect of their young kids being raised by an unfit guardian or worse, in foster care. Money is often the cause of most issues, and perhaps you don't want your family going to war over what you leave behind. Or maybe it's as simple as you waking up in the middle of the night, completely wrought at a pandemic that went from a story on the news to our new reality. Once you have a clear vision of your purpose, think of it as a picture-in-picture box on a TV screen following you around the entire book. That picture might have an image of your kids, your spouse, your partner, your siblings, your puppy, or a person that you love who is now gone. And when you get discouraged or overwhelmed, take a second and visualize that image in your head and then repeat this mantra: this is why I plan. So now that you know where we're coming from, Jean's going to give the framework in which we help you get your entire life in order without losing your mind.
Thank you very much, Abby, Adam, and Outgoing Books. We're so happy to be here. And the book, so you get a feel for what it is, it's broken up into 3 different levels, and each builds on the last to help you gather and organize all the stuff that you already have, all the things that you need or that you want, and ways to add personal touches to truly make it yours. Every task we cover throughout the entire book has a plan of attack, which tells you exactly how to get that thing done, how long it should take, and if there's any cost involved. And a lot of times there isn't much money involved. It's just your time that'll go into that. There are also other elements called side missions scattered throughout, and these may or may not apply to your life. You might have young kids, aging parents, you might have pets, you might run a small business, so many more different scenarios like that. We also have 3 break time sessions. They're in between each level, and they cover when you should update your plan, certain milestones in your life, how to have difficult conversations with your family and loved ones without emotions running wild, and the unfortunate consequences that await your family and loved ones if you don't do any planning at all. Even though this book covers every possible component of a person's life, it's all broken down into easy to digest pieces. So we really didn't want people to get overwhelmed by all of this. So we took that into account. And we're going to give you a brief overview of each level, and we're going to get it started with level 1. So Abby, could you take them through that?
Sure. Well, so level 1 is where we start things off by helping you get the following things in your life under control, which includes a system for managing all your passwords and secret codes, your money and assets organized so that you don't have a panic attack, an instruction manual for your home and vehicles, and a decluttered address book where your most useful contacts rise to the top. And Adam and Jean know I'm still working on that one. If there's one thing we mention in the book repeatedly, though, it's passwords. It's almost comical how many times we mention them, and we have no regrets because they've become such a vital part of our lives in so many ways.
Yes, so the average internet user has more than 130 accounts, and each of the accounts requires either an email or a username and a password. And so how do you think most people keep track of them? Well, according to a Pew Research Center study, 65% of people say they keep them in their head. Yeah, that's right. Memorization is the dominant method, which means either everyone is a super genius, because I don't even remember what I ate for dinner last night, or what they're doing is they're reusing the same password for multiple websites, which we all know at this point is just asking for trouble. And beyond the password issue, unlike your physical possessions, digital assets aren't necessarily obvious. Unlike paintings or bicycles, they're not lying around the house, and so they can be lost or rendered inaccessible if you don't get them organized. And so when we say digital assets, what we're talking about is both hardware and software. And so it includes your phone, your computer, your iPad, as well as everything else that's online or in the cloud, like social media, shopping accounts, entertainment, benefit accounts, family photos and videos, and so much more. And this is referred to as a digital estate plan, and we cover it from multiple angles throughout the book. And I don't want to give away any spoilers here and ruin the surprise, but we start the book with passwords and we end with passwords. They're just that important these days, as Abby just told us. Another important aspect that we cover in level 1 is managing your home and your important contacts.
Yeah. Stop for a second and think about all that goes into running a household. This is one of our favorite illustrations from the book and shows just how menacing a house can be if you don't know the ins and outs. From the mortgage or rent to the routine maintenance to the utility bills that you pay on a monthly and yearly basis. A typical household could have more than 15 utilities, vendors, or other services associated with it. And that doesn't even include how it's financed or any quirks that only you know about, like if part of the basement floods after a heavy storm. But now imagine your family trying to piece all of that together without you around to help. Do they even know where you keep the deed? Do the utilities in your name need to be canceled or transferred to someone else? If a pipe bursts, is there a trusted plumber that you call that won't rip you off? What about maintenance and care instructions for the car? There are dozens of things that you have figured out over the years to help your home operate smoothly, which is why the book explains how to create something that we call a home operating system, which is a helpful and easy to compile instruction manual for your home. We also provide a system to help you get all of the important context in your life organized, which can help your family in so many ways, whether it's for something routine, during an emergency, or for when it's time to settle your estate. You'll realize while reading the book that level 1 is about getting what you already have in order. And as we move on to level 2, you'll notice that we start adding some more elements into the mix.
Correct, because level 2 includes some of the more traditional aspects of estate planning, as well as a deeper dive into your digital world. And here's what you're going to have accomplished after that. You're going to know how to get a will and a power of attorney in place, plus how to set up a trust. You're going to organize all your bills and debts into a neat, non-depressing pile. You're going to compose something called a personal medical journal and understand everything you need to know about advanced healthcare directives. And you'll have brought order to every single digital account and service that you have. Now, this level can seem stressful because it involves things that are perceived as complicated or what you just might want to avoid. We demystify all of that and break things down so you can understand why doing this stuff will actually eliminate stress from your life. Adam has 2 personal examples, one involving a will and another involving medical directives, that really brings this all down to earth.
Thanks, Gene. This is a picture of my father-in-law, Marvin, with my wife, Carrie. And he was an incredible man, and he died unexpectedly 3 years ago. Even though we figured he didn't have a will, we weren't entirely sure. And we had to spend the first couple of days searching all over the place just in case. And then because there was no will, there was no official executor. And my poor wife had to petition the court to be the administrator of his estate, and she had to put up a personal bond just so she'd be allowed to do all those unpleasant things like shutting down credit cards and bank accounts. It's already so yucky, and these extra steps just made it extra difficult, and it would have been pretty easy to avoid. You know, creating a will isn't nearly as complicated or as expensive as most people think. There are tons of free or inexpensive options online, and they cover the basics and can help you get something in place. And if you have a more involved estate, like a blended family, or property in different countries or states, or you have some complicated investments, it's well worth the cost of an estate attorney or a financial advisor to get this completed once and for all, if only to save your family the unnecessary burden later. And now on the flip side of this, I'd like to discuss how planning in advance made all the difference for my mom and my family. This is my mom, Joan, and this is where I talk to you about the importance of medical directives, which are often called advanced directives. And an advanced directive at its core is the combination of something called a living will, where you express your wishes around what care you do and do not want, and naming a healthcare proxy where you choose someone you trust to make those decisions for you if you can. And the importance cannot be overstated. And I experienced this with my mom, who unfortunately died near the end of 2019 after a really tough battle with cancer. I was fortunate enough to have taken a little time several months before to sit down together with her and my dad. And we straightened out her living will and her healthcare proxy. And as a bonus, we also got his done while we were at it. And we discussed what was really important to her. And it was a weird, tough conversation at the beginning, but once we got going, it just started to flow. And when the end came and she wasn't able to communicate anymore, I knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted to be home, and I knew exactly what she didn't want. And there were no dramatic arguments with my family, and I wasn't tortured then, and I'm not tortured now, wondering if my decisions were the right ones. And that little bit of communication and planning really gave us all so much peace, and it gave her control over her end. And there was a study done by Stanford University that found that more than 80% of patients say that they wish to avoid hospitalizations and high intensity care at the end of their lives, and that they would prefer to die at home. But their wishes are often overridden. And while there are never any guarantees in life, having your medical and legal documents in place will definitely increase the likelihood of you getting the end that you want. And one of the best parts of an advance directive is that it's completely free. You don't even need an attorney to get one done. We actually have templates for each state for advanced directives on our website at everplans.com. And we also have a link in the book to bring you there so that you can search for your state and get your advanced directive done really easily.
And we walk you through all of this in the book, along with a quick, easy to understand reason as to what each of these legal or official documents provide and the decisions that you need to make. But a quick overview is, number one, your will. Who gets your assets? And do you need to name guardians for any dependents? Power of attorney. Who should be making financial and legal decisions on your behalf if you can't? Advanced directives, as Adam was just describing. Who should be making health decisions on your behalf if you can't? And what sort of treatments do you want? When boiled down, it's that simple. And you'll find that most of your effort won't be in actually doing the paperwork, but in making the decisions. Finally, trusts. How to protect assets and even what trusts are in the first place, because they can get really complicated and I find them still confusing. And so here are some questions for everyone here to think about. Do you have any of these documents in place already? Have you put off creating them? Do you want them, but you're just not sure where to start? One of the goals of the book and Everplans is to make sure that you create the plan that's best for you and your family. So don't hesitate to contact us with questions or concerns that might be keeping you from crossing these documents off your to-do list. And this brings us to the final level, which focuses on personalization.
And level 3 allows you to personalize your plan with a slew of finishing touches, which include an organizational plan for all of your meaningful photos, recipes, and family heirlooms, a record of your personal history, interests, beliefs, and life lessons so everyone remembers you the way that you want to be remembered, a model for writing letters and recording videos for family and loved ones that they could cherish for the rest of their lives, a complete understanding of everything that goes into planning a funeral, and we also include templates to write your own obituary if you are up for it.
I want to share something that isn't in the final draft of the book, but it's a story that I love, and you can think of it as bonus footage. I was talking about family traditions over the high holidays last year before COVID. And one of our dear family friends, Melanie, who was hosting a brunch, took me aside and led me into the other room. And she showed me there something called a miniature chest drink table that her late mother had found in antiquing in Canada. And Melanie recalled how her mother had these two armchairs next to each other with this chest between them. And after she died, Melanie and her family were packing up the apartment and they found notes on the back of her favorite things, including this chest. And it said, "For Melanie, little table, to Melanie, much love, Mom." She also left a note on the back of a Salvador Dali lithograph that Melanie bought her in Paris that said, "My only Dali from my only Mel." The miniature table and Dali lithograph are beautiful, but the notes make them so much more meaningful. This is a beautiful way to express love and say goodbye, but it doesn't have to be a surprise. While the miniature chest drink table is now safely in Melanie's possession, What if she had never found the note? Cleaning out a late parent's home while grief-stricken could lead to discarding items that have a story to tell. And the same goes for a family member swooping in and taking everything, especially if they think those items have value. A person that we work closely with told us how an in-law looted all of the classic furniture from a deceased parent's house before anyone had a chance to claim anything. And while this was many years ago and she's not even sure if she wanted any of it, it's still a minor point of contention among the family. Anything that you can do to prevent possible conflicts in the future is always a benefit, especially if it only requires some paper and tape or a few sticky notes.
And here's what I learned working with Abby and Adam for all of these years. They, like many people out there, are obsessed with food, love to eat, and they love to cook. They also happen to be really great cooks too. So much so that I insisted they each include at least one recipe in the book, word for word, so people knew exactly how they could organize and get their own recipes in some kind of shape so future generations can enjoy their meals for years to come. And now I'd like the master chefs to explain their creations and what organizing recipes means to them. Abby, you get to go first.
Well, recipes are extremely important to me, as I'm sure they're important to many people here. My late beloved babysitter, Lydia, used to make the most incredible empanadas, and she shared the recipe with me before she died. And every time I miss her, I make the empanadas, and they bring back these incredible memories. And plus, I get to share them with my kids, which creates new memories for us. I didn't include that recipe in the book, but I shared something else, a little sweeter, which is my mandel bread recipe that was adapted from my grandmother's and my mom's recipe. And you can see me here with my sister showing my daughter, Danny, how to make those cookies just a few months ago. But Adam went a more savory route. Adam, actually, I think you're on mute, Adam.
I am, but now I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry, I chose something a little bit spicier. It's my chili recipe that I've been working on for over 30 years. And speaking of grandmothers, there it is in my favorite yellow pot that my grandmother gave to me that I always use to make my chili. And the recipe is in this great Excel spreadsheet that automatically recalculates the amount of ingredients based on the number of people you're serving. And it includes suggestions for replacement ingredients if you can't find what you're looking for at the store. And even has tips like reminding you not to rub your eyes after handling the chili peppers. And it means a lot to me. And this notion of passing along highly meaningful family recipes plays into a host of other aspects that we include in the book to help you keep your legacy alive. Think of all the personal lessons and tips and knowledge that you'd like to leave behind. Whether it's information about your family history that nobody else knows, things that you've loved about your life, lessons that you want to pass on to future generations. Technically, when you put it all together, it's called an ethical will, but we like to call it Spill Your Life. And in the book, we break it into 6 rounds, so it feels a little bit like a game show. And this stuff might seem obvious, but when you're answering them, you'll realize how many of these questions do you wish you could have asked someone who's no longer around?
And along these same lines, here's something I'm sure we can all agree with, which is helping others. Giving to charity is great, as is devoting your time to a cause. If you've done some work with others, whether it's regularly volunteering for events, being a big brother or sister, manning a phone for a telethon, or giving donations to organizations or institutions that you are proud to support. Perhaps you've even gone a step further and allocated money from your estate to make sure the money gets to the right place. These details should be clear and direct so the people that you leave behind know to support these causes in your honor. And this brings us to the final part of the book and the inevitable part of life, the end.
We weren't kidding when we said that we'd help you write your own obituary, because we include 4 different templates from small all the way up to supersized. But before this, we explain and walk you through every single aspect that goes into planning a funeral, including what needs to be done if you opt for burial or cremation, several ways to set money aside, and how to add personal touches to the service, so it's really something that you and your family want.
This may seem like a sensitive topic, but you can also view it as a practical discussion to have with your family. For example, for my brother's funeral, we probably paid way too much money for the casket because we didn't know any better at the time. And when discussing this with my parents, my mom said her preference was for the plain pine box, but my dad surprised us all back then, saying he wanted the most expensive casket that we could find, which was good to know because we had no idea. And this is why communication is vital, so that you're not spending too much money when you don't need to or spending too little in the case of my dad. I have an update to that story, which maybe I'll share later.
Yeah, communication is central to everything that we cover because sharing all of your information and your wishes with others is what ultimately makes a plan complete. We also know it can be tricky to talk about some of these things with loved ones. Talking with family can be littered with emotional and sometimes suspicious landmines. And when the topics include money, medical issues, or death, it can be even more terrifying. Consider for a second that people would rather talk about no longer being on Earth than their finances. The Wells Fargo study that's pictured here on the screen, and which is also included in the book, revealed that although people aren't comfortable talking about money, it's one of the biggest stresses in their lives, and it causes sleepless nights. And so we offer plenty of tips on how to eliminate the fear and stress from these topics and how to break the ice and to get your family talking and planning together.
So thank you so much. Thank you to Oblong Books. This barely scratches the surface of what we cover in the book. We can't wait for you to read it and get your own plan completed and out of the way. And if you think the book isn't for you, I have one final story. Before I started Everplans with Adam, I was explaining the concept of the company to my parents, and my dad, who fancies himself an expert planner, said, "I don't need this. All my legal documents and important plans are with our estate attorney." And then my mom interrupted and said, "But wait, Milton, who's our estate attorney?" And so you might have a folder with legal documents and instructions or a file with an attorney, but our lives are made up of so much more. And plus, if nobody knows where it is or who it's with, it could be as if you never did it at all. The first step is getting started. The book helps you get started and so much more. So thank you for having us. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. The book is great. I'm not surprised we have a reticent audience. It's a difficult subject. People are awkward about asking questions. I have a question for you though. Let's say that you have a relative, maybe an elderly relative, or just a relative or a friend who you feel that this book will be of great benefit to. How do you broach the subject? I mean, just to give somebody a book and say, "Here, why don't you plan for, the end of your life?" Is there a way to break the ice with a relative and maybe work with them through the Everplan program? Are you set up for that?
Yeah, I mean, one possible tip is just what we find is when you try to tell someone else what they should be doing, it sometimes is extra awkward. But if you tell them what you've been doing, it's a really great way to just open up the conversation. Yeah. And so if you say, "I've been using this book and this is what I've been doing," or even if you're not talking about the books and you just say, "Hey, I got started on this type of planning and I was able to check off like these 3 things and I feel like a hero and I'm sleeping better." I'm curious if you've been doing any of that. Like sometimes that's a good way to get going so people don't feel like you're pressing it on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think that the sort of the taboo around end of life, particularly in American culture, prevents people from discussing it, and it's so refreshing to have something that just gives you practical solutions and gets it right up front there for everyone. Could one of you talk a little bit about what you're offering? If you buy the book, everyone. By the way, we have a little button at the bottom of the screen that says buy the book, and we have signed copies with book plates. So, but I believe that you're offering people some additional benefits through Everplans. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, so we have, as we mentioned, we are the creators of a company and a website called Everplans.com, which is a platform that helps you basically do all of the things that we bring up in the book if you want to take that next step. And the platform allows you to create and organize and store, upload and store securely, and then share all of the critical information, documents, and wishes with the people in your life who need access to it. So if you go to encasethebook.com, the instructions for how to sign up for Everplans and get anybody who buys the book through Oblong Books will get a free year of service on Everplans. So buy the book you and then come to encasethebook.com and follow the instructions, and or just email us if you get lost, and we'll make sure that you get set up with a free year of the service so that you can try it out.
Yeah, it's a fantastic offer. I think you just need proof of purchase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody who orders online, you'll have an email from us anyway, which is proof of purchase. So that should explain that. And like Abby said, if you have any issues, just give them a call or call us at Oblong, and we can talk you through it. We might actually, if you guys are going to give us the information, we might email everybody who registered and is attending this evening with some more information about that tomorrow. That's
absolutely fine. We don't promote the website very much in the book. That was done on purpose. The book stands on its own. It's valuable. You don't need the website, but we've gotten people afterwards saying, why are you not telling us about your website? Because your website allows us to do all of the things that we need to do that, we do want you to know we do have this website that would be very helpful if you'd like to start getting all of this together for your family.
And that website is www.everplans.com.
Okay, so let's put that in there. So do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for Abby or Jean? Or
I saw
Adam?
A fun one in here. Do you cover issues related to estranged family members? I love questions like that. Those are my favorite things. We mentioned it, I just like, these are like the because we talk about, people worry about the planning aspect, but the thing that's interesting are the dynamics among families, and that's what it all comes down to. And that's part of what our whole concept is, getting things organized so you don't have these issues after you're gone. But when it comes to that, like we don't dive into the dynamics of how do you mend a broken family or how do you get a relationship like that. But when it comes to updating your plan and having things in there, there are certain steps you should take in case something happens. For example, if that person that you're estranged from is a beneficiary on account of yours, if they're your healthcare proxy, if they're your power of attorney, you're married, you get divorced, and all of a sudden this person still has power over everything, you're going to want to get in there and change all of these things. And I know Adam in the past has spoken a lot about blended families. There's stuff in there that he really taught me about, which is, if you do have this and you're not making plans, and maybe you left a lot of money to like one family, never updated it later, that becomes a whole issue. And once you're gone and people are dealing with this, they're the ones that kind of pay that price. So for you, you can't really deal with what other people want from you, but you can make sure that your plan and every decision you make is completely solid, and then possibly mend or work towards that relationship in the future. But, we really are focused on taking care of yourself and your own plans to start with.
Thanks, Jean. And Mary de Pascal asked, is this being recorded so we could recommend watching it to friends? We can certainly give you a link to watch it again, Marie, but I will let you know. We'll let you know on Oblong's website if it's going to be available for you to watch after the event. So, or you can email us at events@oblongbooks.com. We'll let you know. Kendall has a question. What made you want to write and publish books? You spoke a little bit about the impetus for writing this book, but when did the light bulb go off that there was a real need for this?
Well, we mentioned that the history of this business is that we started by writing articles. And when Adam and I first started, we wrote just, basically the two of us with a friend at the time wrote over 500 articles that we published. And this was many years ago. And today we have thousands of articles and resources and guides. We get about 4 million people a year who come to read our articles and engage with our content online. And because we had so much information, and we've become one of the leading, if not the leading, platform for this type of content online, we said we need to make this more available. This is, and so we started thinking about, well, what would the book be? And we were very fortunate to get introduced to Workman Publishing, who is our publisher, and they really encouraged us and supported us in this process. And that's how this came to be. Although I will say, I think there could be a sequel or two in our futures.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that you were able to take such a large subject, and this is kudos to you guys, and condense it down into such a digestible form.
Well, that's Jean. That is Jean. So Jean is an absolute genius, and who is a writer and has a long career as being a writer. And when we approached Jean with this, hey, what about writing a book? Jean was like, yes, we're doing this. And so he really is the person who created the framework for the book, and I would say along with our editor at Workman, who did an absolutely incredible job. There's a lot of information in this book.
Yeah, it was written at twice the length. And I'm surprised I'm still here and he didn't beat me up, because, when you have a word count and you exceed it by double, usually and the thing that's great is with Abby and Adam, it is very mission based, because it's a matter of how do you get people to do this? Like when Abby found this stuff out, and she and Adam, they were researching this, they realized there's a reason why, because people, they do look at it as taboo topics or things that are ultra complicated. And we want to find as many ways, and whether it's an article on the site, if it's our platform, if it's us meeting with people, if it's a book, we want any way to get people involved and to get interested. And that's become like a big focus of us. I mean, Abby has gone out and talked to everyone she's ever met and all these people. Adam does the same thing. It's kind of amazing just getting that word across. And this makes it so much easier for us, because now we can say, read this book, and right there, you're going to kind of get the idea that we've been talking about in one really compact way, and then take the next step. And we also know, Adam, you speak a lot about just taking it slowly and not just freaking out.
Yeah, and that was an important part of our mission, because this stuff can feel really overwhelming if you feel like, oh, I got to take 3 days off from work to get my whole life organized all at once. Nobody's ever going to do it, and it's just going to sit on your to-do list forever. And you don't have to do all of it to make a really big impact on your family's lives and your own sanity. And you can just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and get a couple of the most critical pieces in place. And I guarantee you feel like a little bit heroic, and you want to keep going, and it'll create some momentum. And you can do a piece here, a piece there. You don't have to sit down for marathon sessions, but you just got to get started. And so it was important to us to try to create a curriculum that would encourage people to just start with something. And not keep it on their to-do list for some other day.
That makes absolute sense. We have time for one more question, and actually it's an interesting one. Do you cover in the book information on funeral arrangements nationwide? For example, if you happen to die in another state, even though you've been diligent, you've set up your funeral and everything's in place, and all of a sudden you're on vacation in Florida and boom. Is that covered in the book?
Yeah, whenever you're dealing with those types of issues too, if people are pre-planning and knowing that you deal with a funeral home, whatever funeral home you're dealing with, they have someone somewhere else too. So in those instances, even if someone was looking for those specific use cases, we have them on the site where it says how to transport bodies, how to transport remains, how to work that stuff out, because we know that a lot of times people, they travel, or even you move somewhere, but you want to be buried where you grew up. And you want to make sure that happens. So you want to deal with a funeral home where you want to be buried, and then in the future make sure that other people know that. And like we mentioned a bunch of times, people need to know these plans. If you bought a plot, if you have anything written down, if you've paid for anything, you need to tell people, or else they're going to plan it themselves, because funerals don't wait. You can't spend a month or 2 months saying what's going to happen. Usually it could be a couple days, a couple weeks at most. So when it's moving that fast, someone could end up planning one, paying for everything, and then realize much later, oh, it was supposed to be this. And those become big issues and other factors.
I'm just going to allow one last one, which just popped up, which actually is also interesting. Does the book address how to handle situations where a couple is never married, but they've been in a long-term relationship?
Yes, partnership, definitely. And a lot of this is making sure you name them in these specific, naming them as a proxy, naming them as a power of attorney, giving them authorization to bank accounts, joint accounts, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think what we lay out in the book is especially important for those situations, because we see a lot of, unfortunately, incidents where, there's a couple that isn't married, and then but they've been together forever, and something happens to one of them, and then the family comes in and takes everything over as if that partner was not a part of the family. And so yeah, it's extra important in those situations to do as Jean said, and make sure that you have the right documents in place so that that person doesn't just get cut out and pushed aside by the family.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, we don't have any more questions. We will wrap up our event this evening. You guys, this was amazing. It was so informative and so necessary, and I'm really glad you could join us this evening. Thank you to everybody who attended. You can buy the book at either of our Oblong stores or online, and visit the website information. If you didn't pick it up during the course of the event, you can email us at events@oblongbooks.com and we'll fill you in. We might even post it on the event page so you can check back on our website. And thank you guys. We wish you lots of good luck with this book. What a fantastic, fantastic idea, and so helpful for everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
It was our pleasure. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.